everybody. Thank you, Pete. And I'm sorry I missed some of the introductions, but thank you for your understanding about the technological challenges. So we're here to talk about the role of play and creativity and imagination in essentially allowing us to enter a different space and to create a new space together with our fellow creators, and the way that that might have a role to play in bringing about social transformations in the real world. So we're interested in what happens in that liminal space. When we play is one of the things that we do from, really right from when we're just a few moments old, probably a little later than that, but within about a month of being born, we are starting to interact with others playfully. And that continues all through childhood. It's one of the major ways that we as children figure out our place in the world, make sense of things, connect up ideas. It's one of the activities we do as humans that is not connected to any particular outcome. And I think that's one of the very beautiful things about it. And reflecting on the plenary that we just heard, one of the things that really struck me about what both Makoto and Pete were saying with their work with creativity and facilitating others' creativity was the importance of being in the moment, of being able to suspend your critical faculties, the parts of your mind that correct you or question whether what you're doing is correct or appropriate. And there's a freedom that comes when those are switched off that allow us to enter different spaces in our own minds, and to have a freedom to respond in the moment and to be fully present in what we are doing. I'm very influenced in my work through the writing of Christopher Small and his understanding of music, the meaning of music being found in thinking about music as an activity, as something that we actively do rather than a thing that is created and then stands alone and is separate from us and from our context. In my practice as a community musician and in facilitating co-created music making and collaborative music making with others, this idea of the possibility of the music being about what happens in that present moment has always been very important. And the other area that I've worked a lot in is in conflict transformation and peace building, and thinking about the role that music may play in supporting those sorts of transformative experiences, those opportunities to transform something about our reality. And here the writing of Christopher Small also falls into the music and conflict transformation writing, where we think about what music may be offering us. And one of the ideas is that when we music with others, we enter a kind of temporary or liminal space, one that is in between other spaces. And when we're in that liminal space, we have a freedom that allows us to experiment, to perhaps try on a different aspect of identity, to imagine ourselves as somebody else, to engage in interactions with others that don't have to carry over into our real lives. So in some of my work in Bosnia-Herzegovina after the war there, this was something that we saw with young people who came into a music space and would there meet other young people from the other side of the city from whom they were completely divided. The war had left the town so segregated that young people never met anybody who was from a different ethnic group to theirs, and their ethnic group had become this label that was completely unshiftable. It dominated every service or resource that they could access in the town. And this opportunity to come and make music with people from the other side was important and was, courageous and remarkable in and of itself. But the music making also, when they talked about it afterwards, was offering them a space in which to experiment with these interactions. They didn't need to necessarily become best friends in a way that that best friendship would then carry over into daily life. It was allowing them to experiment with how it might be to interact with somebody from this other group who they had learned over the years to be fearful of and also to condemn in some way. So music offers us these spaces potentially in which to try on different hats And the role of creativity within that, of course, helps us to suspend reality and helps us to create some distance from everyday life. We get to remake the rules a little bit. So that's what this session is about. It's about us sort of playing around with the idea of how we might exploit that potential of music to allow us to enter a different space, to play with a different version of ourselves, to explore and try out new ideas without that needing to be something that we become committed to, and therefore we will be marked by when we transition back into our actual lives and all the actual relationships that we have there. So we've got a really interesting group of speakers to help us unpack and tease out this idea. And Prime from the Philippines, Primitivo, but he has introduced himself to me as Prime, and so that's what I'm going to call you, Prime. I hope that's okay in this context. And Prime has set up a number of youth peacebuilding organizations in the Philippines, in the area of Mindanao, where there has been ethnic tension for a long time. I mean, hundreds of years, I think I remember reading in one of your articles, Prime. So I might hand over to him at this point to tell us a little bit about the work that he's been doing, and then we'll return to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Julian. Mabuhay. Good afternoon, everyone from the Philippines. Let me start by acknowledging the original custodians of the lands where we are sitting today and pay respect to the elders of the past, present, and emerging. Has anyone here tried canned sardines? You know, the canned sardines? So I am from Mindanao in the southern Philippines, and canned sardines is one of the most popular dishes in the country. So when I was 5 years old, our mother would warn us not to go to the river alone, because if we do, the Muslims will kidnap us and will turn our body into canned sardines. The Muslim kids, on the other hand, are also told by their parents not to go to the lakes, because if they do, the Christians will get them and will turn their bodies into corned beef. So these cultural biases and prejudices, understanding them, ignite my interest to engage in peace-building programs as early as during my undergraduate studies in Mindanao. After spending 2 years in the academe, I co-founded an arts-based youth organization in Mindanao where we use games, music, and creative expression to address violence and bullying in communities. So when Julian invited me to be part of this discussion, it reminds me of that sweet and some sour peace-building experiences when arts is used at the core. So for today, my main argument is that the youth peace-building can be more engaging if we use arts and creative expression, such as music, dance, and games. These artistic strategies better capture the attention of young people and children, and moving away from the boring methods of lecture types of sitting down, mic test, and the speaker talks and everyone claps. So when we use music and dance to introduce to the youth and children the concept of empathy, appreciation of diversity, we, the facilitators, are always ready with us with music and activity. So for example, one of our most popular activity is called for empathy building, wherein we have this activity called mirror exercise. Mirror exercise asks person A to partner with person B, and when person A mirrors person B and vice versa. The music called the Caribbean Beaches is our official background music for this. After the mirroring, we then process and ask the young people of how they feel being followed or being the follower. It is then after the discussion where we discuss the highly theoretical concept of empathy, which is better known as putting yourself to the shoes of others. During the discussion or the processing, youth participants are more engaged and participative. They keep on recalling the silly dance moves by their partners while doing the mirror exercise. So the core challenge of the facilitator is to bring back the discussion into the activity's connection to the related concept, in this case, empathy. At the end of the session, in my experience, youth participants and children as well understand the concept better than explaining a concept by merely using a PowerPoint presentation. I recall one of our Muslim participants who said, "In my culture, we are not allowed to dance, much so that we are not allowed to get closer or touch somebody else if opposite sex. But with this activity, it is not your ordinary dancing experience. It is learning the other and at the same time enjoying the learning of concepts. Though engaging it is, I observed that many of the adults in the peace building arena are hesitant of this concept of using arts and music for peace building. As a matter of fact, there is one who said to me, "Are you sure that we are contributing to peace building by using dance and creative expression?" So there is still a need to educate fully the community about the artistic role of music in peace building, especially if engaging the youth. This is difficult if not continuously reinforced. And so, but if we start with the young minds, I believe that it can be smoother. It is vital to strategically target key learning hubs such as curriculum when students are guided to learn. So that's a bit of my experience of how beautiful and strategic it is to use music in engaging youth for peace building. So I am happy to answer some more questions later, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Prime. We just do a quick applause for online, but just before we move on, I thought I'd just ask a couple of questions from each of the presenters at the end of the presentation in order to sort of keep us coming back to this idea of the imaginative world or that imaginative space. And Prime, I wondered if, because I know your groups work not just with music, but also with dance, and also with social, there's been a big social media project that you've written about. Can you tell us, I wonder if you've seen different aspects of art forms that have sort of enabled this kind of imaginary or temporary space to emerge in particularly visual, particularly obvious ways, and if there's any that you'd like to share with us that sort of really exemplify that.
Sure, this is very interesting question, Jillian. In Mindanao context, the second oldest conflict in the world, there is the increasing use of arts among young people in doing evident in the academy as well as youth-based peace-building organization. In my observation, however, it seems to be exciting for the youth alone and seldom to the adults. It is vital for the adults, especially they who are in the position to create policies and advance programs, to engage and learn about these artistic strategies, because the perception is that arts-based strategies for peace building is just a sort of icebreaker, entertainment, and not really a means of contributing to peace building. Of course, between using arts and not using arts in their peace work, my experience shows that youth peace building agency thrives better if arts is used. Arts captures the vibrant energy and almost tabula rasa ideas of children. I cannot count how many times people excuse themselves to go to the bathroom when the speaker starts to read his or her PowerPoint composed of 85 slides. But with artistic processes, youth are engaged.
Mm. And do you follow up those artistic experiences with a discussion? I mean, do you have to use words later to process what's taken place, to kind of put some more, to make explicit the learning that you're wanting them to take away from this?
Yes, that is like component B. Like component A is the activity, and the component B is, which happens directly after the activity, is processing, explaining, but less from the speaker, but asking the youth participants to talk. And based on our experience, when we have this activity first, prior to the explanation of the highly theoretical concepts, the young participants understands better the concept. And what is more beautiful is that they are able to translate it to the local understanding, not just copying what are the notions of the concept, especially from the Western definition. Like for example, when empathy is defined as putting oneself to the shoes of others, They said, why shoes? We don't use shoes every day. Only the rich people have shoes, and it's warm in the Philippines. That shoes is not really for every day. So in our language, we translate it, putting yourselves to the sleepers of others, because sleepers is more tangible and more familiar to them. But if I believe, and in my estimation, if we don't put activity prior to learning these concepts, the tendency is that it will be boring, and number two, it will not be engaging, and number three, it will really not be in the heart of the young participants. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Well, we'll come back to talk with you more later in the session. But now I'd like us to move to Chichung Wong, who is in Hong Kong, I believe. And Chichung is an academic. He's a sociologist and an expert in the sociology of pop music. This is what I've gleaned from your CV, Chichung. I hope that this is accurate. I also, he's also a DJ, working in radio and sharing his music knowledge in that way as well, and an academic working with undergraduate and postgraduate students in Hong Kong. So Chichung, I'm handing over to you. I'm looking forward to your presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Gillian, and thank you all for inviting, especially Pete, good friend of mine, and all of yours. Yes, when Gillian said about imagine about this topic and then use the word play, I have two associations. First thing first is I grew up as a radio fan, music fan, and then I listened to a lot of Beatles and a lot of fun music. Imagine is the big song to every one of us, I believe. And this year is a big year for John Lennon's commemoration. In our radio channel, we have been doing a big project called Join the Dreamers. So it's a lot of independent musicians and bands been playing. I think we have gathered 26 songs from these independent bands and artists to sing the songs of John Lennon, to pay tribute to him. And this is just some of the examples. And the first thing that comes to mind is that we could build really a space and possibility for music. And in Hong Kong, as of today, as you may know, that we are hard hit by pandemic plus politics. And by politics, of course, every one of us has this challenge. But these days in Hong Kong, our challenge is, I think, unprecedented. Maybe we have to do another session to talk about the protests or other security law things. But today I'm going to talk about music mainly, and to put a little bit of perspective in history that my interpretation of music or my perception of music in this context is that the play of music in a lot of different communities, it will be a lot of interdisciplinary and also cross genres. Because from my radio, back in the cassette days, we would play cassette music and then vinyl music, and now it's digital music. I've been doing this for like 30 years, and I still love this. And then play is a very key word. In recent time, I interviewed an artist from Australia, Keith Urban, and he said, why are you so passionate about music until this day? And he said, because I play music. I don't work music. I play music every day, and I hope everybody uses this concept to play around our, even it's academic work or charity work or community work. And then I have to put in another context, is that I have been playing around these words for a long time, I think, since my master thesis. So listen, okay, please listen. Academia, art, trade, experience, education has been my belief or motto, which is a play of words. Academia is just the beginning of my first research back in, I think, 30 plus years. And then I think it's not enough for me to deal with music, because music, especially pop music, should be more than that. So I put in other words, which also rhymes at the end of the name. Academia, I mean the alphabet. Academia, art, trade, experience, education. And I think today, when I want to share one project, which is also hard hit Hong Kong and the world, part of the world, unlike today's pandemic, is the SARS in 2003. I don't know whether you still remember that we have to wear masks day in, day out, especially some of the Hong Kong friends here, and in Asia back then. And now this is 100 times or 1,000 times more serious than SARS 18 years ago. And back then we tried to do a community project, and it was sponsored by Cathay Pacific, and another media project called now.com.hk, which was owned, and now is also owned by the tycoon Li Ka-shing. And we curate a song called Popo song, P-O-P-O. Unfortunately, it means police these days. In Hong Kong, police is another context these days, okay? But Popo means embrace, and Popo means hug. And I know there's a free hug campaign back then in 2003 or 4. And we try to curate a song, invite a bunch of singer-songwriters to curate a dance and to try to embrace people wherever we go. Like we did the song in England, in the recording studio of Peter Gabriel's Wilwell Studio. And then we go to the Notting Hill Carnival and we have a video. Let me try to put on this share screen with, I don't know whether it works, with a video. If not, I can just try to put a song and so you can hear a little bit.
I think you just have to play it because we won't be able to share now. Yeah.
Okay.
Or you could send me a link.
Can you hear that?
Maybe if you send the link to Pete Chichung, then he can.
Oh, okay. Okay. I can send that later.
Yeah.
And Pete, I'm also just thinking, just while I'm talking to you, that if we don't have Nonna joining us, we might still be able to play a little bit from the video that she sent us. Did you have that lined up? Oh, Pete.
Doesn't matter. Okay, I can share this later.
Back to Chichung.
Yeah. And this song has been driving out and also spinning off a lot of community touches. For example, we went to senior homes, we went to children's center with wheelchairs. Even though this dance has to like this and like that and hug, and then we even teach kids on wheelchair to do their hug without, dancing with their feet. And then we go to schools, universities, and then in the year 2004, finally, is SARS-free, which we hope next year will be pandemic, COVID-free. And I don't know whether this song could be danced again. And this experience given as an example that it's a pop song. It's a pop song. It's a song that is made up with a lot of independent musicians from Hong Kong and some from England. And that we try to connect the song that has the therapeutic purpose and to build a new time and space experience that we might not have to be so hard. We don't have to deal with the issue with the medical way or to do with it in some academic way, but just to give it a very, very free-flow kind of treatment. And that's the example I want to share. If I have more time later, maybe I can share another project, another crisis that was purely politics, I think. In 1997, we have this handover from England back to China. And so happened on the radio channel, I have the opportunity to do a lot of interviews, including like Pete Moser a few years ago. And I met this guy too on the air, Peter Gabriel, another one is David Bowie. And then I initiated the project. Why don't you sing a Chinese song before Hong Kong handover back to China from England? And then so happened he has its album. He was wearing a Union Jack jacket designed by Alexander McQueen. And he said, yes, let's do that. And so happened from the phone interview, he made this song into reality. And now he's gone almost for 5 years. This song is a song called 7 Years in Tibet, and we have a Mandarin version. If you Google it on the YouTube, you can find Mandarin version of 7 Years in Tibet. And there you go, is a song about blessing for a lot of things. And then this blessing to Hong Kong people is a special meaning. And this song even hit the Chinese chart is unprecedented, and no one has done that ever since 1997, that a British or international musician singing in Chinese and hit the local Chinese song chart. And I think this means to me, it means a lot to us, because these are pop songs or communal songs, even through the traditional radio channel, but it can sift through the whole Hong Kong community and somehow connect with the international music horizons. And I believe still up to date, 2020, 2021, with the pandemic, we have a lot of musicians singing their songs. And like the Imagine project I mentioned earlier, they try to do the collaboration of John Lennon's song. And because John Lennon these days in Hong Kong also has another special meaning, it could be very political. You could get arrested if you do some John Lennon post it in public spaces. I don't want to elaborate more. Maybe I get caught up in this talk, okay? So, you know what I mean? John Lennon could be a taboo these days. So sadly enough in Hong Kong. That's why, but in the very, very common sense, it can be a very, very normal community music, to sing Imagine, to sing Give Peace a Chance. That's why I want to connect these dots. I might be jumping here and there, but this is how we feel in Hong Kong now. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for joining this sharing. Thank you.
Sure.
Back to you.
I have got a question for you, which was just to clarify, I guess, or to get you to say a little bit more about the way that these songs become coded, the way that a John Lennon song, for example, becomes something that is controversial, that is anti-state, but with the SARS song, I was interested that I could see Carmen nodding her head as you were explaining about this song and the role that it had played back in 2003, 2004. Do you think that if we have a sort of a COVID vaccine and our world opens up again and returns us to something more like what we have known of international borders being open and so on, do you think that song will continue to have a resonance, that it may sort of have a resurgence in the popular sphere? Could you speak a little bit more about that, about the way these songs keep carrying their messages even over long periods of time?
Good question. We have actually revamped the song a couple of times in the regional or social crisis. I think after the song was done in 2003 and 4, there was a huge South Asia tsunami. I forgot the year. I think it's about 3 or 4 years after that song. And then we did a charity concert, and we also did, I think we raised about $100,000 Hong Kong dollars for the tsunami victims in South Asia. And then we just, let's do the song again, let's do that again. And then 5 years ago, exactly, there was a huge earthquake in Nepal. I don't know whether you still remember. And there's a huge Nepalese community in Hong Kong. And then we invite some local Nepalese band together, and we call it Popo Family again. We invited some Popo Family musicians, and then we did the song again 5 years ago, and to raise some fund for them. And it's not just about money. We try to use the same song to raise the same kind of consciousness that music is to connect people and for therapeutic purposes. And we try to do this exactly in the political situations in 2019 and the COVID 2020. But we have to do it very, very carefully. One is a very sad English name connection with Popo song. And then some say, you want to embrace Popo? And then we try to do that. But then somebody told us to be very careful. And then we didn't do a big campaign. And then it's too dangerous to dance in public spaces anyway, in this context. And then in COVID, we can't do songs without masks. We can't do more than 4 people in public spaces now. That's why the project also got quiet these 2 years. I hope next year we can get liberated, both senses. You know what I mean? Then we can do another proposed song, or we can do this online. I can do this with you together. Maybe Pete will be the convener again, okay?
I'm aware that we started a little bit late because I was absent, but Pete, how are we for time? Do we need to still finish up within 9 minutes, or are we able to?
No, we've got 20 minutes. We've got a good bit of time. Yeah, we've got to about on the hour.
Well, why don't we open up the floor now for a few more questions, because I can see there's a question from Kun for Prime that I missed when it came through earlier when you were speaking, Prime. But it's the Philippines is very close to Indonesia, particularly Sangkya near Manado, Sulawesi Island, which is mostly Christian. And Kun is wondering, what kind of music or music style do you teach the children in the conflict area? Like, how do you make that decision about what music you're going to play? Because as we've just been hearing from Chichung, music is so tightly coded often to different aspects of identity. And if you're trying to bring people together through music, then that presents a challenge. So could you talk to us, maybe also we can open up to dance as well as music, and perhaps different art forms create a little bit more space for code.
Sure. That's a very interesting question, because though Mindanao is home to the second oldest conflict with many tribes and culture, the effect of colonization is still very strong in the country, to the extent that while personally I really like to use Filipino music, but the young people will not relate to it. So do you know, for the information of everybody, what connects to them are English music. And it's a little bit strange because culture of the colonization, the effects of colonization is really very strong, to the extent that the young people up to these days still appreciate more. As a matter of fact, K-pop are getting more influence in the Philippines than the original traditional music. And so we use English music, we use sometimes Filipino music, but it does not actually matter. It does not. It is not particular. It does not create any conflict. As long as the beat is there, like if the activity needs upbeat music, then the upbeat music will be used. Also for the dance moves, that's where there is cultural inclination, because when we are engaging Muslim friends, Muslim young people, especially with women, it should be a little, it should be facilitated by also a female. I cannot facilitate because I am a male. There is like the gender factor. And also for the movement, it should be as freely as possible. Like you don't teach them step 1, step 2. It should be up to them, because some of them actually don't move also because of their cultural inclination. So as to music, it varies. It does not, in my experience at least, it has no cultural underpinning. As a matter of fact, English music is widely heard in TV, in radio, and also in our activities.
Okay, thank you very much, Kirian and Prime.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. And to Pete, Pete has a question.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating these different angles of things we're talking about here. I just really wonder about young people, you know. So I mean, I really love the dreamers, the concept of that, and getting people to contribute. This conference for me is so fascinating, because you're looking at such different cultures and different, you know, the difference between what must be happening for young people in music making in Melbourne and in Hong Kong, or in place in the Philippines and in Japan, and the opportunities young people have to go and make music or even listen to music, you know, it comes to what you were just saying, Prime, was, you know, what is the music they're consuming, and how can we, having worked in Hong Kong over many years, I'm very conscious that for young people, the only places they can go to make music, you know, there's a little bit in their schools, but that's just fed, you know, or there's the private music schools, but there's nowhere like in the UK where young bands can meet and can play and can do gigs and can have their voices expressed, but also where they can hear lots of different kinds of music. So how are the young people in Hong Kong ever going to engage with, where they're going to hear Lennon, you know, where that extraordinary catalogue of music, you know, and how will they ever get engaged with that music? Where will they hear it? How, you know, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Pete. I think the Beatles and John Lennon are still very relevant to young people. From every now and then, their music was playing on radio, on a lot of internet. And I believe internet has been opened up a big possibilities. And that's why I try to connect with the traditional media, radio. That's what I've been doing for over 30 years. That even cassette now is getting a big revival, vinyl is getting a big revival, and John Lennon is hip again. What I say is, and everywhere, I think not just Hong Kong. I believe the reissue of the Beatles and also the John Lennon project. And also, that project was sponsored by Mini Cooper, the car. And I was so happy to the radio channel, because business was very bad in these times of the year. And the Mini was brave enough to not just sponsor the project, because their counterpart in Asia and also in the headquarters said, "Oh, you sponsor a John Lennon project in Hong Kong? You must be politically incorrect or crazy." And then the Hong Kong boss said, "Let's do that." And I just embrace that idea. And to answer back your question, and that's how and why people will just come on board and, oh, let's do the John Lennon cover version. And I think these days, even where I'm now at is a Kwun Tong factory area. I think, Pete, you know, here and there has a lot of small studios, you know, subdivided flats for accommodation, and for making music, for drama, rehearsal, for skateboards. A lot of these vibrant things are doing, not to say underground, but like not the mainstream culture. But after this pandemic, I believe this so-called underground culture or indie culture or communal music culture is popping up again, because young people need the energy to be, you know, released, and also they need to address to their issues at heart, or to address to the big issues of the politics and pandemic. And I would see we can transform these negative energies and the negativities into something positive. I hope.
Yeah. And taking those I mean, something like Imagine is about hope. It's finding those songs that give young people those angles. And okay, well, that's a bit encouraging. It'll be interesting to see. Interesting to see what music. Interesting to see what new music comes out of this. Then, but also it's just where do people, get to perform as well. Just to say, Gillian, I could play a little bit of the Popo song on YouTube if you wanted to. So I've got it here now.
Queued up, ready to go. Let's make sure. Yeah, we've got it in the link, which is great as well. I just want to make sure we have time for questions, because I know a question is occurring to me. But before I ask it, I'd like to see if any of our other members of the group here have a question they'd like to ask of either panelist. Just wave at me if you have. Okay, I'm not seeing a wave, so I'll ask my question, just because this is something that's occurring to me as we're talking. And the question is still forming, so it's probably not going to be very articulate. But I'm sort of interested in this idea of the state, because we're talking about conflict, and so the state has a role in whether conflicts, how conflicts play out. And music therefore has a role. We're talking about the role of the state in suppression and reducing the amount of space, creative space for young people and voices. At the same time, through our education systems, the state can be a great supporter of bringing more diverse voices into an education space. They might not be, but they can be. For example, in countries like Australia, where there can be a very strong multicultural policy, then that might mean there's a real concerted effort to ensure greater representation of different voices and space for different voices, and that is something that the state can support and facilitate and create that actual space. So I'm also thinking about the idea of songs and protest. Again, this is a question prompted by the situation in Hong Kong and what we know you've all been going through over the last 12 months or more. And so music is, and also because we have people here from South Africa, so this is a question that you guys might like to answer too. Music is often is considered to be a very non-violent way of putting forward a case and of making your voice heard. And so it can be a very powerful tool within a peace building context. If the music's message is calling out an oppression that is being driven by the state, is that non-violent aspect of music somehow reducing the confrontational aspect of it? And does that reduce the call for justice? Does that make it a smaller or less impactful call for justice or call for attention? So I'm just interested in us playing with that quality of non-violence or oblique confrontation that music might offer. But just aware that we have a number of different cultural contexts here where people might like to chime in. So I'll invite Chichung and Prime to speak on that first, but then perhaps others would also like to comment.
I just you are correct, Julian, that music is used positively for peace building, and it's a little bit popular. During the dictatorial rule of Marcos in the 1970s, some people also use music to denounce the government, and they used it in a very subtle way that if you do not look at the lyrics and everything in it, you will not observe that it is actually against the government. So in that way, people use music as a tool to express their sentiments against the military rule of Marcos in the 1970s up to the 1980s. up to this time, with Duterte as one of the leading Philippine president, with there's a lot of issues with extrajudicial killing and everything, there are some, but it is not really as prominent as during the Marcos time, when even the artists in the national level use music to denounce the government, but not in a direct way, in a very subtle, very, you know, very secretive way. Like, if you don't look at the lyrics, then you will not learn that it is actually against the government.
Yeah, okay. So it can be quite oblique. It can be very indirect in the way that it works. Do you think, does that reduce the power of the tool? Does it make it
I don't think so. I don't think so. It does not reduce the power of the tool, because it is like using the knife to cut a tree. So it's like same tool used for different aspects. So if the question, if it decrease the power of the tool, I don't think so. It is a matter of how it is being used.
Okay, thank you. Chichung, did you have anything you'd like to add? Was that a question that prompted any thoughts or observations?
Yeah.
Okay. It's tricky because their song, very famous song, Glory to Hong Kong, is now banned. And made the song, and we have different versions: ukulele version, orchestral versions, and hip-hop version, whatever you can imagine. And other than this song, of course, and millions of songs.
What was that? Sorry?
I think it's all in the digital world now. But except Hong Kong, we cannot do that public performance anymore. Or I played it a couple of times in the early days of the first week when it was born, and played it on air, and yeah, that's fine. And now it's not allowed totally. But other than this song, I think we have a lot of other pop songs, or even Christian songs, Catholic songs. There was a song very, very famous, "Sing Hallelujah to the Lord." I don't know whether some Hong Kong friends still remember that. In the early days of our protest in 19, we sang this song and try to calm both sides, we would say, calm down and not to shoot so much of those da 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 da, and don't throw so much da 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 da. And then later on, it doesn't help. This doesn't help, and then we go to another era and into another stage of the whole confrontations. And if I have to think about how music's power or how music works as a community in this new era of Hong Kong since July, that the national security laws has been enforced, I would say people still love music. People still embrace music and use music as self-healing and also to be the voices, but just more subtly, or music would be our private language and not so, public. Recently we have a big show of a local band called Tat Ming Pair. They've been here for over 30 years. And the frontman, Anthony Wong Yuming, has been very upfront since the umbrella movement. They have almost 10 shows in a theater, in a stadium. And in between the set, before the encore, people already started to scream the slogans in the protest, but the safe slogans. The forbidden one will not scream out, but the safe one are also very dangerously evolving into the forbidden ones. I was there in the first night and I said, oh no, if the first night already got banned, the rest of the night shows or even the front man would be caught. And these are the situation in Hong Kong now. And that's why with pop music and indie music, communal music, I think we are in a situation where no other places now is so precarious and also so fragile. I don't know what to say, and I hope next conference will be another scenario, right?
Look, we're almost to the end of our session. To finish, I'll just pose one question further to both of our presenters, and that is, given we're talking about also the power of imagination, imagination can take us in directions that we didn't anticipate or different and didn't didn't expect. So for Prime and Chichung, have you any stories that you'd like to share that are an example of a music being used in a social change context where it took the group in a completely unexpected direction, or something arose that was quite a surprise, that power of imagination to deliver something that would never have been cooked up had that group of people not been there in that particular time? Might not be music, might be in the social media project, or theatre, dance.
Yeah, maybe in general, when one time we are having this social media project with young people where they use drama and everything, and trying to explain that having Muslim friends is okay. These are Christians, by the way, who are campaigning having Muslim friends are okay, and also Muslim friends saying having Christian friends are okay. Then it was very positive, like we in the peace building work appreciated. Then one professor in the university criticized them that really you are promoting, you are actually being empathetic to terrorists. And this is really very shocking to us to hear from a professor degrading the work of young people. And because we have already this clear ontological value that having friends from different culture is okay, then it's okay for us. But having this different perspective from a professor of different perspective, when she said you are promoting terrorism, having friends from different culture, it's really shocking to us. And it's indeed degrading to the agency of young people.
Yep, quite alarming. All right, there's some beautiful things that people have been posting in the comments. We'll lose the comments thread, at least initially, even though it is being recorded, so it will be available and saved somewhere. But if there's any links that you want to grab, do grab them now before we go. But otherwise, I'd just like to thank again Chichung and Prime for presenting to us today. And I'd like to thank everybody for being part of this conversation. There are many things in our world that we would like to change, and we as musicians sometimes can feel like we are pushed to the sides of being the entertainers or the feel-good moment, or as Prime said, the warm-up act. And I hope that this sort of discussing with all the potential of music to bring other world into existence, even if that's temporary and almost like a rehearsal space for real change in the real world, that this sort of inspires us all to keep going with this aspect of our work, and to stay connected with each other and draw support from the work that we're all doing. The room, I guess, will it close automatically, Pete?
No, we'll get a warning, so let's just keep going. We've got, we've got another couple of minutes time to keep on trying to find out what's happening with the others, but we will be booted out of here we'll be told when we're being booted out.
Close us out. Well, I might just let you know who unfortunately we're missing Jacinta. Oh gosh, she has a long surname, de Suarez Pereira, I think, but she's from Timor-Leste, East Timor. She works for an organization called Bafuturu, who work with peace building, gender equality, and human rights in Timor-Leste. They've been going since 2004. It's an extraordinary organization working with young people. Lots of work with film and theatre and education. Bafuturu, I do really recommend you look at what they're doing if you're interested in what's happening in our region. They're very important group. It would have been lovely to have Nonna with us, but for whatever reason, we do not have her here today. But we send our greetings to our friends in Timor.
Thank you very much, Gillian. So we're all going to be booted out of here in a minute. There's a plenary. We'll have a break, and then there's a plenary, and then some music, I think. Thank you very much, teacher. Very nice to see you. I've been in Hong Kong every November for the last 15 years, I think. And
yes.
This year I'm not there. It's so strange. I miss all of my friends, but we'll get there next year, I'm sure. So
yeah, I feel all the energies are together. Yeah. Let's keep imagine.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Prime. Okay.
Yeah. Bye. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Gillian. Bye bye.